The following episode was recorded at Banff Session 2026, which is celebrating 70 years of architects and interior designers coming together to share ideas, culture, strategy, and this year's theme was origin stories. In this episode, I'm joined by Sasa Radulovic. He is the co-founder of 5468796 Architecture out of Winnipeg. Sasha was born in Yugoslavia and immigrated to Canada in 1996. He has a bachelor's degree of environmental design and a master of architecture from the University of Manitoba. He's a fellow of the Royal Architecture Institute of Canada, a two-time recipient of the Governor General's Medal in Architecture, and represented Canada at the 2012 Venice Architecture Biennale. I'm your host, Kelso Brennan, and I'm genuinely curious about strategy, business, architecture, design, and talking with the people behind big, bold ideas. Sasha, thank you very much for being on the podcast. How did your session go earlier today?
I don't know. You tell me.
I wasn't able to attend it. I've been stuck in the booth here all day.
Right. So. I think it went well. If there's one way to judge it is by the amount of questions you get at the end.
Oh, nice.
Especially that early, and when people are still perhaps not awake.
Yes. Yeah. Early.
And especially because the session was quite technical, and perhaps we put some people back to sleep. But we got.
I came in for the tail end,
right.
After I came out of the podcast. And I think one of the very first questions somebody said, thank you very much for being so detailed and so technical. And so I feel like a lot of people come and do a keynote presentation and it's very high level and aspirational. They've got the professionally cured photos after the fact, but they don't get into the nitty gritty of it. So afterwards, when I was around the coffee pot and the watering hole, a lot of people were talking about your session and some of the technical sort of timber, although I missed some of it. So, and I won't be able to expand on it because I'm not technically proficient in that manner. I'm not an architect or an interior designer. I'm on the business side with an MBA. So I can't comment on that part, but
the presentation, the talk was titled Mass Timber for the Masses. And it really came about a year and a half ago when we embarked to do a mass timber project. And I'm not sure if you're aware of a mass timber craze that's sort of kind of moving through the architecture world. But it is, everybody would like to build a mass timber, but it just because of its supply and some complexities that come with it, it's truly not an affordable or everyday kind of material the way you see the stud frame light timber.
Yeah, and there was a component I had heard about it that has HSS, like steel on the inside.
Well, most mass timber relies on quite elaborate steel connections, and any timber, including mass timber, does not work very well when you try to pull it apart.
Right.
And the building needs both. They need to be compressed, but also pulled apart because there's forces that are applied to them in all directions. So if some are pushing, the other ones are pulling, and so your material has to resist that, right? So concrete does that well, steel does that well, wood does it well when you're compressing, but not when you're trying to stretch it. So steel is necessary, but it seems at the moment there seems to be only one way to build mass timber buildings, which is using a lot of steel connections and a lot of overlap between wood and steel. So you have enough room in wood to purchase, as we call it, to bolt things together and so on. So that all adds to complexity, adds to embodied energy, the greenhouse gas emissions, embodied carbon, all of which are contributing to the non-sustainable ways in which we live or build in particular. So we were trying to kind of pare that back down to come closer to what the skill sets and required means and methods that we see in regular stick frame, where your house is framed, but make it fit within the mass timber category, which has significant advantages when it comes to, again, sustainability and building codes and buildability and height and so on. So we're trying to find a middle ground.
There's something interesting at this conference here. There's a board over here that's sort of trying to track people's origins. So if you're from where they started education within Canada, etc. There's a one column where you're doing the strings, which has, what's your primary focus in the industry, and there's community, and there's a lot of string wrapped on it. But there's not one after nearing the end of the first day that anybody has wrapped around sustainability, which has surprised me.
Be surprising,
Yeah,
yeah.
very surprising. And there's only 2 categories on there that don't have a string wrapped out of, say, I think there's about 7 or 8 choices to put your string on. Have you tried this yet?
I was just walking by wanting to try. Yeah, but I'm gonna do that as soon as we
Okay.
finish.
Well, if you do afterwards, maybe Aiden can go follow you to see what your path would be. And I guess I was gonna ask the question on that path, what led you to the sustainability of the timber or that kind of construction? And is that more of your focus, or is it, would you say, community? What do you find?
So our firm has sort of 3 pillars that emerged through multi-day processes. We've gone down twice, strategic plans, where we're trying to account for everybody's input and desires and sort of proclivities within the office. We're only a 20-person office, but it's sort of is a good
And how
representation
many
of
people would be part of the strategic planning?
20, all
All so
20.
you
Yeah, it
everybody's
was
input.
everybody was part of that, right? So the 3 pillars emerged from that, and the uh, one of them was environmental sustainability of sorts, so being environmentally sensitive, and doing projects um, that that can change how much impact we have on environment, right? And make sure that we do the simplest of things that we can do in every project. So that's sort of the one pillar. The other one is about social responsibility, social equity. Our firm is well known for communal housing, community housing, social housing, market housing with a lot of shared space and communal space having to do with equity and equality of people in spaces that we design and so on. So those 2 things are extremely important to us. And the last one was trying to do that with producing architecture that has consequence in some way or another. And that can be anything from aesthetic to sustainability to technical, but it needs to be something worth writing home about. And that's sort of how that's the guidance for all of us on how to do projects.
And you mentioned that you've done this twice in terms of strategic planning for a multiple day session. How long ago did you do this?
Although the first one we did about 2.5 years ago, up until then we were kind of piecing it together as we were going through the process through running, the firm for years. But then we did that 2.5 years ago, and we just had it revalidated half a year ago.
It's smart to do. I think it's also, I always feel like that, like a chiropractic session. You're sort of like getting everything realigned and making sure. But I've always heard, and we do this at our organization. We've got 50 staff, but not everybody partakes in that. It's typically just a handful of people who call it at the top of the organization. That essentially you've got a lot of drag along with everybody else, like you're coming with us or not. But a few people have decided. I like the fact that you had all 20 people put an input into this. How did that come about? Tell me more about that. That's what I'm interested in sort of the origins of this.
So part and parcel of that is or sort of it is a part and parcel of an initiative like that we established probably 15 years ago, which is a better workplace policy. And we've tried to do everything. So we incorporated a series of things, and the strategic plan really just grew out of that, of trying to incorporate to get everybody to have a say of sorts. You can't run a full lateral firm. I mean, you can, but that is a different type of organization. So just to provide some highlights of this, in addition to the straightforward things like benefits and et cetera. We have a sabbatical for anybody who's been with the firm for 10 years. So the sabbatical, you can take between 3 and 6 months paid for and no strings attached, as long as
That's
you're going to
amazing.
come back. And it has been paying back in dividends, I should say, right? We have a full office study trips that we organize every about a couple of years. That's fully funded by points that we collect on Visa through that time. And so all of our team members will then join us on a trip. Our last trip was to Ireland, where we spent about 7 days on each one of these trips. Prior to that, we went to Chile. We've done places like, Londons and New Yorks and all of that, but the Mexico City, and so on. And the next one's planned for Athens for next year.
What would come out of the like? This is obviously a fundamental shift about running a business, and also fundamental shift of thinking about, you need to be here to work to earn revenue, let alone, being gone for 3 to 6 months, for instance. What came out of one of those that you could use as an example where somebody sort of went away on a sabbatical and brought something back to the organization that brought uh, disproportionate value and a benefit?
Uh, the most direct value is their capacity that they're kind of got to purge their brains from day to day grind and pressure, right, and come back and be able to return. And that we've seen that across the board. So basically the day they're back, they are almost twice as their capacity, almost double what it was
That's so
before they
smart.
left,
I've
right?
never heard of this
Uh,
like this. I may have in much larger organizations, we'll call it, municipal government. You can get a sort of a furlough or off for a year, and you're guaranteed a position. But it's not the same as like reintegrating in a smaller 20
right,
person
right.
firm.
Well, it's all or propelling and perpetuating because everybody who takes it then understands the next person to take it will bring back more energy and experience and
That's so
perspective and all of
unique. I
that. So
love
it's
that.
it's really really helpful. And so we help each other, get there. And we've done 6 or 7 sabbaticals so far. It's only been introduced. We try to do one a year, 1 person a year, so 6 or 7 a year, and so 6, 7 since it started. And so that tells you how many people have been with us for how
You
long, right?
started your firm in 1996?
No, in 2007.
Oh,
Yeah,
2007.
yeah, so
Sorry,
we've
I've
been
got a
out
date
for, what
mixed up.
is it, 18 to 19 years, yeah. And so yeah, and this has started before COVID, so yeah, 7 years ago, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really good. You miss those people, right? Especially because they're
No
obviously
doubt.
people that have been with the firm
But
for
it
a while.
gives you and everybody else an opportunity to miss them,
It does, yeah,
which is so
yeah.
good, right?
And it was surreal, I can tell you when we took ours, my wife and I were both partners, we started the firm together, we took ours in 4 years ago, for 4 months, and what was the most surreal, was the month prior to going to sabbatical is the month that you had to give all your tasks away
Oh, yeah.
because there was no like, "Yeah, I'm gone for 2 weeks and I'm gonna catch up, right? And we will piece it together. Somebody will look after it, but I can always." There's none of that. Like, it's gone. Your control over any decision is gone, right? So by the time we hit the sabbatical, we actually went to the island of Madeira for the first 7 weeks. We landed there and there was no decompressing. Like I was ready to go or, start the sabbatical because I had no responsibility. There was nothing lingering in my head. Sure, there was some information, but I couldn't do anything about it. There's nothing I could do about it.
Yeah.
That was the
Did you
deal.
check back in with the office or did
I did not. I had 2 client calls that I was able to pass on to our partner who was in Winnipeg, and so two client calls for a period of 4 months.
and what
That
do
was
you
it.
do when you pass that client call over? Do you let your client know that you're on a sabbatical?
Yeah, 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 we
Right,
let him
because
I
they're
let him know because they called me out of the blue, it's clients that we
it's
weren't
very
working for a while,
transformed.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so we said, "We're on sabbatical, there's somebody else who can take care of it, I can join you for a first conversation, but then I can't
This
anymore."
is
That's the
such a
deal.
fascinating thing. This episode is supported by High Signs. I know not everybody likes commercials, but I do want to make a note that as the managing director of High Signs, we're here to help support architects and interior designers. And I've been fortunate to work on projects in Reykjavik, Iceland, Hawaii, Montana, Banff, Jasper, Calgary, Edmonton, and beyond. We like to focus on placemaking, wayfinding, and architectural signage. Our design team help with sign planning, content schedules, mapping, engineering, fabrication, and installation. Whether it's a public art installation or campus wayfinding, we're here to help. High Signs. Let's build something great together. This is such a fascinating thing. Have you ever talked about this before with other people? Where did you think about this idea to do something like?
Well, as I mentioned initially, it's part of the better office policy. Like we're trying to create an environment that's that gives back. That's different because we all architects we work hard.
Definitely.
It's a demanding job. We work when we're in the office. We all work. We all work around the single table. There's no cubicles. There's no offices. So you actually hear and see what's going on at any given time. It's much quieter than you think it is because it's the the highest intensity open office space because you're all sitting next to each other. But the fact that you can actually hear what people are talking about and learn through that
And
process
potentially
is
stop people from making a mistake that already has happened or that
precisely.
you've
Yeah,
learned from.
yeah, yeah.
I've also worked in a similar capacity. My wife and I have worked together for almost all of our careers. We celebrate our wedding anniversary for 20 years this summer. And I enjoyed most of my younger years as an entrepreneur in a bullpen type of atmosphere because I felt like, the newest intern, for instance, was coming up to speed much faster. And I also enjoyed that. But I also felt as we grew that we needed the privacy of offices and we started to get into some of the HR aspects of needing confidential conversations sometimes. How do you manage some of those in your office or how does that
In the
work?
coffee shop, right?
Oh, yeah, the coffee shop. Yeah.
Which we have next to the office. But anyway, yeah, you're right about that. There are those things. But also over the years we've been talking about transparency and about nobody holding grudges and so we encourage everybody
Yeah.
to speak up,
I
right,
feel
when
like
it's happening.
like, maybe a sense of your personality that comes through on your overall look, that you're very open and easygoing person to some degree. I'm just
Easygoing, yeah. We'll see. We'll ask other people about that.
depends not about the work per se, but I do feel like when you're the entrepreneur and the architect and the designer, and you're multiple hats, of course, that it can become challenging to divide the work that needs to be done and then the actual running of the business, and which is less running of the business and more managing of the people when it comes to that. How do you work with inter-office dynamics and things like that as a team has grown?
Well, it's very interesting. So we have a core of people, which is basically half of our office that we've been together for 10 years or more, right? Some of us have been together for a full course of 18 or 19 years. And the as people sort of build up their seniority status, if you wish, and so on, they take on further responsibilities such as HR and so on. We have a buddy system. We also have a HR personnel that is not partners, so they're owners. So they're the ones who actually have an easier access to both. We identified that sort of a middle level of experience. Don't want to call it middle management because that's not right. We'll have access to both
Yeah.
the
Okay.
the
Yeah, that's
as you
smart.
say, new interns and the partners, right?
Yeah.
So they can hear both sides and not mitigate necessarily, but communicate if it if needs be. We do check-ins with everybody twice a year
Smart to
in
do. Yeah.
private, the and so on. We also have a fully as part of the sharing, we have fully transparent finances for the office, so it's absolutely clear to everybody. Everything except for how much individuals
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
is shared,
That's smart.
right?
I think there's a book about this called The Great Game of Business, which essentially is sort of putting the power of the overall business and the understanding in everybody's hands. And so understanding how the bottom line is driven and, what affects the bottom line in
This was
projects.
triggered by one of the interns that I was mentoring that doesn't work with us, uh, saying, "I can't believe that I'm getting paid $40 an hour, but they're charging me at 200, right?"
Yeah.
And so I said, "Yeah, I
Do you know what
understand why
else
you're
goes
feeling that.
into
We
that?
all
There's a
felt
lot
that."
of that.
But right after that meeting, and this was feels like 15 years ago. Right after that meeting, I go to my partners and say, we gotta be more transparent about this. They need to know that we'll spend $20,000 on photography this year, right? So there you go. That's X amount of dollars of your hourly
Yeah,
wage, right?
that's true.
And there's everything else: the
Yeah.
office, the risk, the building equity for next year when it's going to get slow, COVID, all of that stuff, right? How do you pull out of it without a glitch, right? And
You're kind
that's
of
the
your
part of it.
own mini economy to some degree
You
too,
have
of
to
like,
be,
you got to know when to spend, when to hold some back and whatnot.
that's right.
I felt like that too with some of our staff too, because there's people make judgments, right? They don't make a judgment about something, and if they don't know, they'll make some sort of
It's going to be self-centric, even
yeah.
though if they're not selfish, they're still going to be centered
But
about their
sometimes
own
even the
needs.
judgment over the idea that they're going to make assumptions that this costs so much. Sometimes it's wildly high,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's actually wildly low.
yeah.
I had mentioned to somebody that we have a large facility. We have 55,000 square feet of space. And so I asked them, you know, how much the heating bill was this month in December? It was quite large, right, out of Edmonton. And they said, I don't know, maybe 1,500. And I said, a little bit more. I said 3,000. Said it's 15,000 this month. And they're like, what? That's like, and I was like, well, it's like this most winter months, like somewhere between 8 to 15,000. And it puts things into perspective like, whoa, that's, you know, a person's salary, potentially two people's salary, depending on, you know, the month. And it puts some things into perspective like, oh, okay, like you mentioned, the $40 to 200, it's made up of a lot of things, professional insurance, all kinds of things.
All of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all of
exactly.
that.
However, we're happy to be able to share back because we have an allowance for a healthy profit within the company, and then but we're willing to do a sharing of the remainder of the funds that we've made, right? So we do that as well across the board. So I think our average is about $10,000 a year of we call it an incentive plan. So it's actually an incentive for us individually to do better in order for the office to do better.
Yeah, it's smart.
So everybody is thus far received, even though we had 1 year where following COVID, we knew it's going to happen. We warned them in advance that there's not going to be nothing. We're able to provide incentive plan at about $10,000 a year. So
Great.
that's a
Yeah.
good little
It's some,
bonus.
anyway, especially depending on the time of year when it comes, it might be pay for all of everybody's Christmas presents or, you know, a trip or whatever it is that helps. So, well, I want to talk about the origins, maybe about yourself a little bit and going, you know, way back. You know, you've got your own individual style. I shouldn't have said, we'll say easygoing, but rather a bit more progressive. I feel like you're very, uh, well spoken. I heard the last part of your session. When did you feel like you stopped being the architect in training and one where you started to come in and you're your own person, that you're your own architect and you've got your own style and vibe?
Huh, that's an interesting question. It hasn't happened long ago, right? And I think it's still happening. It's going to be happening until you
But it's got
retire,
to be
right?
this moment where you shed all personal fears and doubts and you're like,
Right,
having to own this.
right,
And I also feel very comfortable.
right. I think about that, and I often wonder how soon will I get there, if ever, right? Because there's definitely this sense of I think what keeps us sharp is the people around me, and then their knowledge and their ability to challenge what I know. And so the profession is such that it's vastly complex. You can certainly hone it down or narrow it down to become less complex. But if you want to practice architecture at its broadest, it is coming at you from all ends, technical and from environmental sides, from sustainability, from social aspects, from client aspects, from all kinds of
Of
pressures that
course.
come
Yeah.
your way, from public pressures and so on. And so if you want to embrace that, then you have to keep on developing and understanding what the environment around you is.
But so there's still that question that resides that when you feel, you know, that you're on the, you've tipped the scale of I feel more comfortable than less comfortable. And was there a moment there that, or a project perhaps that you felt like, yeah, okay, I've made it. This is it. I feel
No,
good.
however, I'll butcher this, but there's a John Cleese from Monty
Yeah,
Python,
I
right?
know.
Clip that speaks about the real creativity or really creative people being able to be creative because they're not afraid to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Because it's that discomfort, and that's really when I'm the most stressed out, if you wish, and even though I've done it year after year, project after project, is when you don't know where the project's going. Like you're starting on it, it's exciting, then the excitement slowly sort of gives
Dissipates.
gives for gives the like, okay, now I have to figure this out, and then you know that you're gonna figure it out. You've never not figured it out.
That's right.
However, that gap between the two is what's very comfortable, and that's where the real creative people thrive
Yes.
because they can enjoy that environment. It's incredibly unsettling, right? And
It
so
can
I
be for sure.
I think, I've kind of found my own answers until I saw this clip for the first time. I found my own answers to that, and I was convincing myself, oh yeah, we're back to that point, right, where you've got six options, none of them are is clicking, like, but something's gonna click, right? And it's gonna come. You have to give it time, and so on. And it's that kind of stuff. So you now recognizing, oh yeah, that's where we are in that process. That's the only confidence I carry into it. But I also they worked very hard. We also all worked very hard not to allow a preconceived notion, if you wish, or half-baked thought to overpower and guide the design process, because it's ultimately not gonna be the right thing
Right.
unless it's fully thought
Yeah.
out, right? And so it's so easy to say, "Oh yeah, we've done it there. Let's do another one of
Yeah.
those," right? And let's make gobs of money, right? And what our philosophy generally is that that's short term, sure. Long term, no, because the
Right.
moment you start seeing it repeating
Yeah.
yourself, um, you're basically giving up.
Is there a quote or a favorite saying that you would carry with you when you're going through that phase that you just explained? One that always sticks out with you, that a motto perhaps?
No, I'm
No?
horrible with motors. No,
Okay.
no, no,
Well, how
no.
about this?
It's more about a attitude rather than a philosophy to work. So because philosophy in my mind requires us to agree on something prior to embarking on it. Attitude of staying open as long as you can,
Yeah,
right?
as long as
Possibly
you can,
can
okay.
in a creative process, as long as all the other pressures. So always trying to you're not conning the process, but you're always trying to delay the pressures. Give in as much as you have to, but not more, because you want to
You
keep as
mentioned
many
as
doors
long as you
open.
can. What's the catalyst where you can't?
Well, sometimes the deadlines is our business. Any business in this industry is about deadlines and project based, deadline based, right?
Can't stay open
So
and
we have to make decisions.
that's right.
You know,
Budget constraints, timelines
all of that.
typically.
There's
Yeah, all
there's
of
all the
that.
things that help you make decisions along the way, but they put pressure, and then that's what it is, man.
I'll ask maybe two more short questions. Which one would be, I haven't asked this of anybody yet, but what do you see with all this AI advancement? What do you think will be happening in this industry in the next couple of years?
I'm only curious, when is it gonna start thinking for itself? Because that's the only part that worries me, is where, or not worries me, but that's the only part that feels to me is challenging to the way we work.
Right.
There are segments of our business that are going to be taken over by AI. That's not a secret. But the being able to produce things that have not been produced, like true innovation, if you
They're true
wish,
innovations, yeah.
yeah, it's not challenging that aspect of the industry yet.
Yeah,
And so
understood.
the world, we all dabbled into it. It's horribly correct and horribly imprecise, and it's really a blunt
Oh,
tool
definitely.
at the moment. But if its promises to learn, then it's going to learn through that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I've had issues with each one of them in addition and subtraction,
Yeah,
let
it's
alone
like the
more
simplest
complex
thing.
things. Yeah,
Even there's some where you ask it, it's like which month has the letter X in it, and it says, "Oh, that's August," and you're like, "No, it's not in there." And you say, "Oh, you're right, I'm incorrect. It's actually December." And well, it's actually not. And so it has some kinks to be worked out. Although in such a short period of time, it's really come along. At
how
such,
short is the period of time? Because I'm kind of curious. I think it's been
well,
around for 50 years, but
yeah.
maybe
So
I'm wrong.
when if you think about, like, we'll say as simple as it would be, which would be playing chess, and so that there is a definitive moment where chess is beaten, and so it's smarter than the average human being, and not just that, but by order of magnitude multiple times. But that computer cannot slice bread, so it's very simple in one specific area. But as it starts to get a bit broader, you're right. I think the game Go, Go eventually becomes solved AlphaGo. And so I've watched a lot of documentaries about this, and I'm not an expert by any means, but once you start to take all these, you're the best in this and this and this and this, it starts to get compelling, and that general intelligence, I think, is coming, as you said, like maybe inventing new cures for diseases, as I said, inventing or innovative. I think I can get there, but
It has to be able, at least when I think about how the intelligence works in our business, I have to be able to be inspired by something that's outside of
right, yeah,
the expected path.
yeah.
And it's not always going to generate results, but I need to keep on broadening and feeding, right? And that's generally personal. And you might like fiction, I might like nonfiction, and we're going to bring two different views into this conversation. Now, there's multiple other inputs and
Of
impulses that you
course.
can get, right? And that's what we rely on in the office, which we rely on everybody contributing because we're all different, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so and that partially the questions about that or questions around that expand the complexity and beauty
Yeah.
of what
I
you
do.
do. And can you automate that to a certain extent? But
I feel like
who
it's getting an
judges it?
input like, I would like to be this style, or whatever it is, but it doesn't have its own style.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
creativity, it's like if it fails at addition in creativity, it's going to fail
Right.
as well. We can stumble upon a solution, but that's any human can
It's
stumble
still
upon
a
a solution.
tool. I think it's still, in short, my hope is that it's a tool to augment and hopefully help, do.
It's about augmentation. You're right about that. But if it can help me save time in one task in order for me to do the other task,
That's right.
to me, that's a very interesting time management / augmentation, sort of
Well, if you
expansion
just
of your
look back at
abilities.
history and we have the printing press and things like that that start to create information that passes to many people, but also that would have changed the landscape of professions and jobs when people freed up more time. You got sculpting and more art, and so I hope that that AI does my taxes or whatever it is, and like here's here's my inbox and go calculate my taxes because those are one of those things I don't want to do at the end of the year, and free up my time to go do something truly creative, that I want to do, that I enjoy doing. So that's my hope. But I want to say thank you very much for spending time today. I very much appreciate it. And interesting, compelling information. I hope you have a great time spending the rest of your time here in the mountains and enjoy the beautiful
Thank you.
Banff
This has been
Springs
marvelous. I
Hotel.
can't believe this is your first podcast. Like
Yeah.
the setting is great.
Yeah, it's
you
a
guys
lot of
are
fun.
organized.
Well, I
So well, yeah.
I do signage for a living, so signage is our business. So there it
Right.
is, and High
Okay.
Sign sponsored the booth here, and we sort of came up with this idea and built the whole booth within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty short.
I was
time
wanting to
frame.
ask you.
We pitched the podcast to them, and they said, "This is a fantastic idea," and they gave us a lot of free reign with it. So I'm very thankful for that.
Amazing. Next time you should have an architects compete to design your booth.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
I hope so.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.